What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome back to the Nerdy Narrative. Today I will be talking about my recent reads, all of the things that I've finished since I last talked to you, what I've started, and what I plan to read next. Let's talk about the first book that I finished, which was my reread of Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. It is quite hilarious looking back on my experience with this one because as many times as I have read the series, watched the movies, I always forget how dark this one starts, how much everyone is squabbling and whining, and I was thinking only the illustrations are going to get me through this one. I don't think I like this book very much. Oh my goodness, but I forgot about all of the wonderful things that are some of my favorite things that happen in this entire series take place in this book. So things definitely turned around for me and I enjoyed my reread experience very, very much. When I decided I wanted to reread the Dresden Files, I decided this time I wanted to read everything. All of the short stories, the graphic novels, everything in chronological order. That journey began with a short story, A Fistful of Warlocks Out of Briefcases. The thing about this story, it's about Anastasia Lucio. We have no mention of Harry Dresden at all because it takes place in the Wild Wild West. Lucio ends up pairing off with Wyatt Earp to fight some bad guys. Next in the chronological reading order was a short story from Side Jobs, A Restoration of Faith. This is the story where readers first meet Harry Dresden. They get a good look at that big soft heart of his. I followed both of those stories with the graphic novel Welcome to the Jungle. This is the first time I've read any of the Dresden graphic novels and I absolutely loved this one. Again, I'm already a fan of the Dresden Files, so the graphic novel for me was everything I loved about Dresden but with pictures. So I'm off to a great start already with my reread. I'm having a fantastic time. It's still in its infant stages. It's just begun. So if you want to join me, the link to my Discord is down in the description below. I have a channel set up for the first 6 months of this read along, just all the things we're going to read that month. But there's no time limit. Take all the time you need. Just make sure whatever you're coming to talk about, you're in the right channel for talking about it so it doesn't confuse other readers and you're good to go. The next book that I finished is Echogenesis by Gary Gibson. This is one of the top 6 quarterfinalists chosen by Team Book Invasion. I really enjoyed this book. It had such a mysterious, intriguing beginning, a little bit of horror, which I really wanted more of. It did get a little bit sideways for me because all of a sudden these characters start pairing off and randomly having sex with each other and I'm just going, wait a minute. You're all soldiers, scientists, and engineers. Even though you're in these younger bodies, you're still mature in your thinking. You have to understand this makes no sense. You're on this alien world, you think, and you're just gonna go off and have unprotected sex with one another willy-nilly. You're all in relationships and have families back home. It did not fit into the storyline at all, although the author kept saying all throughout the book remarks about them being physically 20 years younger than they last had memories of being. That got on my nerves a little bit because it was repeated so often. I kind of felt maybe it was used as a little bit of a convenient plot device because there were times that they were traveling and they were just running to these places like 30 miles in 4 hours. And I am so sorry, but just because you're 20 years old, you're not going to get up and run 30 miles in 4 hours with zero training. That's not how that works. But that's just me nitpicking. Overall, I really love the story. The ending landed, but it didn't land as well as I had hoped it would. Maybe there's going to be another book in this series. I don't know. I would love to have another one. There's definitely room for there to be another one. And if there is going to be one, I will be reading it. Next on the list of completed reads was Kuiper Station by Wilbur Seymour. This is the first book in the Kuiper series. I was about 25% of the way in before I already knew I was going to be reading the other 3 books in this series. I went and added them on my want to read list. I've got to get them scheduled on the TBR. I had the best time with this book. This is not a book that's for everybody. Let me go ahead and just say right now, there is a ton of language, a lot of immature but hysterical banter. It's like this author sat down and interviewed me on some of my favorite movies and TV shows and then took that information and wrote a science fiction novel. Now, some of you out there can back me up on this. There has been many times in conversations on Discords and live streams, somebody's asked me what my favorite movie of all time was. Without hesitation, I've always said Jay and Silent Bob Strikes Back. I have watched that movie more times than I can count. I still laugh at every stupid joke. You take Jay and Silent Bob, you put them on a decommissioned space station out in deep space, then you're gonna add in elements of cursing and fighting. Like, if you've ever seen the show Rescue Me, the one that was produced by Dennis Leary, and he was the main actor, he was an Irish fireman, and how they just fought all the time, but then once they fought it out, they were good. Tons of language. I mean, they just cursed to curse. Throw that in there. And then let's put in some high intensity action scenes from like Mission Impossible with the purge going on. There was so much action. It was fantastic. The action was broken up by the banter of the characters, the gallows humor, because this is not a happy place. The people on Kuiper Station are usually there because they're running from something, they had nowhere else to go. And the rule about Kuiper is once you're there, you can never leave again. 90% of the people who are there are addicted to some type of drug to be able to get through the day. There is a lot of violence and things that are happening. So when you have the character of Bob and the artificial intelligence of the ship that he reprogrammed to make a little bit smarter and self-learning named Candy, the banter of these two is just well-timed, it's well-placed. There's also other characters that have some great line delivery. It's so good. And that's not even getting into the plot, which y'all just read it. It's on Kindle Unlimited, but again, for those of you who don't like a lot of foul language, you're not going to enjoy this book. I did have a chat with the author and we were talking about the language, and he said that that does taper off. It's just an element, a device that he used to help show the progression of Bob's character, which for me, Bob's character didn't progress or develop or grow in this novel. To me, we got a whole lot of insight to who Bob really was. The first 3 or 4 pages, I thought, I am not gonna like Bob at all. I'm gonna hate this guy. And then all of a sudden, I started getting these breadcrumbs from the author throughout the story about Bob. By the time I got to the end of the book, I knew exactly who Bob was. And I'm ready to see what's going to happen with his character in the further books. So hopefully they're all on Kindle Unlimited as well, which so is Echo Genesis, if I didn't mention that. I have had the best luck in recent months with finding excellent science fiction novels all on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have that subscription, definitely take advantage of downloading these books. That takes care of all of the books that I completed since we talked last, but there is one that you might be looking for in this list of completed reads, because I talked about it last week. I was almost done with it. That is The Pain Eater by Kyle Muntz. Guys, I DNF'd it. I couldn't do it. I did skim ahead to the end. I was disappointed in the ending. The whole reason I read the majority of that book was because I was so invested in learning about the creature, who the creature was, where the creature came from, and the ending was just a glorified Pokemon fight with no explanation as to what this creature was and where it came from and what its goal was. So I DNF'd it. I have started Michael Jess Alexander's new collection, which is called Conjured Darkness, 6 Macabre Tales, and they are wonderful. You might recognize that name. I listened to the audiobook of a previous collection by him, Boarded Windows, Dead Leaves. Is that right? I'll put a picture of that collection here. I loved it, absolutely loved it. I've read the first 2 stories so far. The first one is called Quiet Mimicry, and the second one is called Trapdoors. They're both kind of science fiction with horror elements. I absolutely love the blend of those 2 genres. And Quiet Mimicry, oh, how do I tell you about this story without giving it away? So let's say there's an alien invasion and you can't tell when a person has been taken over and used as a host. The human race knows that this is happening and they're scared, and then you throw in the mix that a serial killer decides to use this alien invasion as a cover for them to kill. Ugh. So good. And then Trapdoors, just the dread and the suspense. Oh my gosh. Doors, for lack of a better word, just open up randomly anywhere in the world and the person falls through. Where are they going? Don't know. Are they just stuck in the ground and smothered? Don't know. Loved it. I will hopefully be finishing this collection by the time I check in with you guys next week, but the first 2 are already bangers. I expect the other 4 to be just as good, if not better, so I'm looking forward to reading more. I also started my reread of The Wheel of Time, beginning with The Eye of the World. Yes, it is naked. I have the dust jacket over here. I've got the 30th anniversary edition, but I just love how beautiful it looks. It doesn't take much to make me happy. I am about 200 or 300 pages in on it. I am pairing it with the audiobooks for the first time. I've never listened to the audiobooks for this series. It's been a wonderful experience so far. Listening to Mistborn Era 1 finally got me okay with Michael Kramer's voice. And I do have to say, I like his voices that he's using for these characters much more than I have any of the Brandon Sanderson books that I've listened to him. My favorite voice he does is going to be for the Gleeman, Tom Maryland. He just really captured the essence of that character in my opinion. But this is going really well. And then the last book that I have started this week that I am just blazing through is Echoes of Another Earth by J. Daniel Layfield. This will be my 5th read of the top 6 SPSFC books for Team Book Invasion. I thought I had my top 3 already picked from what I read, but this one came in like a wrecking ball, and I think it might be going to the top of my list of favorites. You know, even though there's a few little convenient things that happen, I don't care. I've been loving this book. I was up so late last night reading it. My eyes kept trying to shut. I kept dropping my Kindle, everything. I would get up and walk around the house, try to move around to wake myself back up. I finally had to give it up. I'm like, okay, just gonna have a binge fest today. So as soon as I get done filming, I will be getting right back into that book. I might even finish that one today. I just absolutely love it. It's about a guy named Josh, and the world keeps ending, and when it ends and he dies, his soul hops another dimension into another Josh's life, and so he picks up with that Josh's life and lives it until the next time it happens. That is probably a terrible description, and you're probably going, that fascinates you? Yes. And this is another book where we have a friendship that is just hilarious, has great banter back and forth, and I guess that's just my thing for 2023. Best friends with banter. Who knew? That takes care of all of the books that I've finished, what I'm currently working on, what am I going to get into next. Well, now that I have finally received my copy of Stephen King's Everything's Eventual, I will be getting started on these stories. This is a read-along that is hosted by Jake over at The Bookish Drummer. We're doing all of the short stories by Stephen King. We're just now starting this collection. If you want to join us, I'll have the information linked down in the description box below. And while we're talking about short stuff, I will also be reading my essay for Joan Didion this month, which is called Rock of Ages. So I'll be taking care of that this week. The other short stuff I'm gonna read, I'll be finishing the short stories in Michael Jess Alexander's collection, 6 Macabre Tales. Once I finish Echoes of Another Earth, I have got to get moving on the Wine and Crime Book Club Pick of the Month, Just Like Home by Sarah Gailey. We read their story, The Echo Wife, a few months ago. That's one I didn't think I liked until I got to talking about it with everybody, and then I kept talking about it. I shared the book with one of my best friends. They loved it. We enjoyed talking about it. So either I liked that story more than I thought, or I just like their writing style. I'm excited to read this one and join in on the conversation for that. There will be a book club discussion live stream at the end of the month, last Saturday of the month. Is that the 28th? Yes, January 28th at 1 p.m. And once I finish Just Like Home, I will be getting into Joseph Sale's second book of his new series, Book of Thrice Dead. I will be reading Gods of the Black Gate. I am so excited. That just smells like a good time. I can't wait. These covers, I just can't. And every time I pick this book up and I have the camera going, I have to show you all. But that's going to do it for me this week. I got a lot of reading done this week. I'm so happy because I have a lot more that I want to do. I'm looking over there. I've got quite a stack left on my TBR for the month, and I have a little less than 2 weeks to get it done. Can she do it? We'll find out. You guys have a great rest of your week. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please consider hitting that like button. Subscribe if you want to see more, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.